Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and today on Sewerscreens, we're looking at the saga of the Viking women and their voyage to the sea serpent's lair, or also known as the saga of the Viking women. And in this movie, there's a lot of women, barbaric men, Vikings, and one sea serpent that I have to say is an amazing practical effect. So, without further ado, put on your scuba gear and come dive with me into the sewers of Hollywood. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the movie we're talking about today is called The Saga of the Vikings Women and their voyage to the waters of the Great Sea Serpent. Long ass title. It's also known as the Viking Women and the Sea Serpent. Starts off with the book. The book opens to show the long ass title. It was a long ass title. It's a long ass title. And then you get to these women who are throwing spears at two trees. They're trying to vote on whether or not to go save their men who went off on a voyage to a different land. And two women throw. One goes for yes, one goes for no. So, who's the sister to the main character? She looks at him, and then the woman's like, "You have to make your own choices here. This is your fate. Don't do it for me. Do it for yourself." Anyway, she fucking throws that spear, and it's a yes. So now they're tied up. And at this point, a man comes out of the fucking woods. I guess not all men left. I guess only a couple men left. But anyways, a man comes out of the woods just to watch them vote. And then it cuts back to the women, and they go, "Well, there's only one person left to break the tie." And then they go, "The Black Witch." They're all white. It's a 1958 movie, so everyone's white in this movie. Anyways, like, the Black Witch. I don't know why they call it the Black Witch for. I guess she's a medicine woman. And she throws and votes yes. And you're like, all right, so they're going. Then it cuts to them on the beach, getting the boat ready. And then the Black Witch and, I don't know, some woman. I don't know who the woman is. All the women look alike on this one. The only one I could tell apart was the Zir and the Black Witch, because the Black Witch was the only one who didn't have blonde hair. Or at least the only one that didn't look like they had blonde hair, because this movie's in black and white. They have these two women, the Black Witch and the other woman, have a conversation, and they're like, "I'm surprised you voted to go. The only reason you wanted to go is because if Dazir has an accident on the way, maybe her lover, her man lover, her husband, they're not, you find out they're not married later. So they're not married. They're just boyfriend and girlfriend, I guess. I don't know how this world works. Anyways, her whole plot is to kill Dazir on the way there. So that way that her husband, her boyfriend, the leader of the tribe, can get with her instead of being with Dazir. That's her plot. The other plot is them finding the men and rescuing them. It's crazy. This is crazy. This movie's fucking amazing. I recommend watching it. So they get the boat ready, and one woman. It's crazy. Oh, the opening's crazy. Like, after you get the voting part and stuff, and they get the boat in the water, it fucking goes from like, oh, that's a story, to fucking nuts. They push the boat. Okay, not all of them, just one woman is pushing this boat into it. The first wave hits them. They lose the boat rudder. It's just gone. They lose it in the water. The girl that pushed the boat is it's in the water, and then one's like, "Get an oar." And then they're like, "Help her." And they get the lady who fell. They're all fucking disoriented. The first wave hits them, and it's just crisis mode. Like, literally crisis mode. If you look, there's women almost falling off the boat. The first wave hits them, and it just goes straight to fucking crisis mode for them. It's fucking crazy. These women shouldn't be sailing. Anyways, they pull her up, and they're like, "We're not going to be able to control this boat with an oar." And then the leader's there is like, "We're just going to have to try." And then I guess they sail. It cuts to nighttime. They're all just sitting around talking, having a great time, talking about what's happening. They're not really having a great time. They look miserable on this boat. The one woman, I don't know the woman's name. There's too many of them. They all look alike. They're all 50s stereotype women. Anyways, one woman's holding the oar, and then like a pelt, whatever you want to call it, starts moving, and then she's like, "Huh? What's going on?" And she pulls out her dagger, and she's about to stab it, but it's the guy. He stole away on the boat. It's like, huh. And then this is a long boat, by the way. So there's no under deck over. It's all just deck. You look one way, you can see everybody, and they're all so close together. And then they start talking out in the open, and then all of a sudden, I think it was Dazir, the main lady, came around, and she was like, covering him back over real quick. She could have seen him when she was walking. They're like she could have heard she heard him talk. He's like, "Who are you talking? What are you talking?" And he's like, "Oh, I guess." She was like, "Who are you talking to?" And the lady was like, "I guess I'm just talking to myself. I do that sometimes." She knew. They all fucking knew. And she's like, I'm here to get a blanket, because I guess she was someone who's cold or something. And she's like, oh, she reached for the guy, and she goes, don't take this one. Take this one. These are still a little damp from the splashing of water. And she looks at her like, I know what's going on. You know, she looks like, I know what's going on. Anyway, she grabs the pelt. The guy comes back out from under the fucking thing. That lady gives him the piece of food. Then they just talk. They talk for about 5 minutes. Like I said, this is a long boat, so like everybody can hear everybody. Everybody can see what's going on. Then it cuts to, and then they're like, huh. And then it cuts to daytime. He's sharpening swords, so they don't even care. He's just out in the open. Now, I guess I missed the scene where they found him. No, there's no scene where they find him. It just cuts to him out in the open sharpening swords, and then they're making fun of him. And the woman, then the leader's there is just hanging out underneath the sails, underneath the sails. And then the Black Witch sees it, and she just like casually looks around, and she unties the rope holding the sails up, and the top of the sail just clumps down, almost hitting the main woman is there. So this bitch is trying to kill her. Like, she's trying to murder this person to get with her husband, well, boyfriend, not husband. They're not married. That's specific in the story. They say, maybe, the Desire says, maybe if I save him, he will marry me. So they're not even married. They're supposed to be these great lovers. They're not even married. I don't know. Drops the damn sail, misses her. They're like, oh, it must came loose. And the guy's like, I tied this myself. There's no way it slipped. No questions after that, by the way. No one goes, no questions asked. Must have slipped. Cuts to later in the day. The main woman is there staring off into the distance of the water, trying to see anything. She sees a beam, a ship beam, and she just like doesn't say anything to the other one. Doesn't go, hey, look over there. Doesn't do anything. She takes off her sword belt, right in the water she went. No questions asked, no worries. Right in the water she went. She gets up to it. She sees it. She touches it, and all of a sudden she's like, and it cuts to a fucking shark. A shark. She was running away from a shark now. After I don't even know what she was doing. It was crazy. Running away from a shark. The shark's on her ass. Everyone on the boat finally sees what's happening, and they start yelling for her. And then she gets to the boat. They pull her up. They're like, oh my god. Oh. And then the guy's like, and then the girl's like, what's that? And they're like, it's a sea serpent. And it's a giant. The sea serpent's great, by the way. Great practical effects. It's just a hand puppet, but I love it. And he's like, it's the sea serpent. Oh, I thought it was only in myths and legends. This movie's crazy. We're 20 minutes in, by the way. We're about 20 minutes in. 15. We still got 40 minutes to go. It's great. And the sea serpent sinks their boat. Pulls them to a whirlpool, because I guess it spins and makes a whirlpool. Pulls them to a whirlpool. They pass out. They wake up on the beach, and they look up, and there's just men on horses. Men on horses. They don't speak the language. They're foreigners. And they're like, follow us. You know, I guess that's for, anyways. They're like, follow us. And then they just start whipping them. Just start whipping them. And the women are like, oh, fuck, okay, goddamn, don't whip me no more. And they follow them. The whole time, it cuts to them on a beach, to them walking down a path. And then, as soon as it cuts to them walking down a path, one guy just whips. He whips one of the women. And it turns to the guy who snuck on the boat, and one of the women, I think it was his ear, I'm not for sure. I'm not for sure who anyone is in this movie, honestly, because they're all white people, and they all look exactly the same. It's just, what is a white American in the 1950s? That's who's in this movie. And cuts to the guy talking to one, and he's like, I'm not too much worried about these guys. All they can do to me is kill me. But I am worried about you because, well, you know, he implied that the worst thing, like, they won't rape him. Boy, I mean, I'm not saying I would or wouldn't, but he's pretty good looking. But he implies that the only thing they can do to him is kill him. They'll rape you, lady. They're going to rape you. They're going to turn you into a sex slave. I want you to know what he implied. That's what he implied. And the woman's like, I dare them to try. One of the guys on the horse comes by and whips her. Just whips her. The guy's like, hey. And he's like, rawr. And then they keep walking. And finally they get to a castle. And in the middle of nowhere castle. And on the, you think like, oh, it's a castle. No, it's not a city. It's a castle, and they're just tents on the outside, huts on the outside. They lead them into the castle, and they're like, they have great architecture for being savages. And the guy's like, I don't think they built this. I think this is Viking built. Just look at it. And they're like, huh. And then it cuts to a guy, I guess it's the king, Stark, the bad guy in the movie. Stark is the bad guy in the movie. Cuts to him, and then the woman looks back at the guy Viking they brought that who's stuck on board with him. I guess she's looking for an answer. Like, do you know who that is? He hasn't been in. It's crazy. She's like, do you know who that is? He don't know who it is. He's like, I don't fucking know. He shakes his head. Like obviously he doesn't know. And then like the guy shows up and he's like, oh, guest. Look at all these fine women, and he starts touching them and stuff. Checking them out. Obviously they're gonna slave. Then his son comes in. His son shows up. And he's like, son, these guys ring this bell. I forgot what it's called. These bell 3 times. Never gonna come back and play. These bell 3 times. When are you gonna show up? And then he sees that he's talking to you. He's like, oh, are these the new slaves? And his dad's like, no, son, they're our guests, and they will be joining us in our boar hunt. And he's like, our boar hunt? But they're all women. And then he touches one of the women. This is the best part, by the way. He grabs a woman, caresses a woman's face. I was like, oh, I guess he likes her. And he goes, this most sexual way he could, women. And then he just slaps the shit out of this woman. It's just bam, and slaps the shit out of her. The guy Viking like defends her. It's weird. Nothing happens to these people. He slaps the shit out of this woman out of nowhere. Dad's like, these aren't just normal women. These are Viking women. They will be of use in our hunt. Anyway, and it's like, okay. Turns back to them and like, you will be joining us unless you're too tired for the hunt after your voyage. And then the guy Viking's like, Vikings never get tired, the guy Viking says. He's like, good. Then I shall have my men ready the horses. So the men readies the horses. I set out to go boar hunting. It cuts to them riding their horses. They got dogs with boar hunting. And anyways, at one point it comes back to the bad king's son, Shair. I don't know what happens to him. I guess he gets hit in the head by a branch or something, but he falls off his horse. And it is the most feminine way I've ever seen someone fall off a horse. And he starts acting like a little girl, like a child, like a little girl child. He's like, oh, ooh, ah. And the leader, Desire, which is the leader of the women Viking, comes around, saves his life, kills the hogs, and he's like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? You don't know how to keep your nose on anything. She's like, I just saved your life. And he's like, no, you didn't. I'm a prince. You know what that means? Since you helped me, I'm going to be banished. I don't know why, but in the culture, if the prince is helped by anybody, he gets banished for not being man enough, which he isn't. Anyways, I could be banished now. And she's like, ugh, whatever. She picks up the spear. She goes, here, you have killed this mighty boar. And the men roll up. They see what happened. The men and the other women Viking roll up. He goes, my son has killed a boar. And then it cuts to them partying. It cuts. Oh my God. It cuts to one of the men, one of his guard. No, you don't know his name. He's just random guard number 5 kind of thing. Pouring alcohol down one of the Vikings woman's breast area, breast, whatever you want to call it. Just pouring alcohol, just having a great fucking time with these women who don't want to be there. Who don't want to be there. Trust me, they don't want to be there. They're not happy about this. This is the sister to Zazar, is just fighting this guard off. Zazar sees him. Zazar is about to kill this guy. It's crazy. Zazar is getting pissed. Zazar is getting so pissed at this point. The dancer tries to distract him. The dancer sees what's happening. I don't know who this dancer is. It's just another woman dancing. Not a part of the Viking, just some random woman. She sees it. She gets up on the table, dances, throws some alcohol in his face, gets down, and then he just like decides, since the art sister doesn't want him, he shall take the dancer. So he just stands up, picks up the dancer in his shoulder. The dancer starts screaming bloody murder, starts hitting him, and all the other guys are laughing, having a great time. He carries her off to do God ungodly speakable things to her. And then the guy is like, oh, he's God. Now it's my time to harass Desir's sister. And he grabs her. It's like, it's having a great time. Terrible fucking people. Terrible fucking people. They get what they deserve at the end of the movie. Don't worry. They're terrible fucking people. And Desire, the leader of the women Viking, grabs a knife off a table, about ready to kill him. And then the bad king's son sees that, and he's like, oh, he had to stop it because, she saved him, so he has to save her now, payback, paying off the debt. He goes, I want to try and test the strength of these Viking women. He's opposite. He goes, here, girl, take this. And she takes it. They get it on there. They arm wrestle. He wins the first one. She wins the second one. And before they get set up for the third one, the dad's like, enough. These people are our slaves. We have nothing to prove to them. Crazy. They were guests, and all of a sudden they're slaves. Crap, I thought he was going to trick him. Anyways. And then the guy, the one that stole away, the Viking guy that stole away, gets dragged into the freaking courtroom. And then just a whole fight scene takes place. He knocks the two guys dragging him, and then the king picks up an axe. He's about ready to sink this axe in the back of this Viking. But he jumps that way before the king can swing. And then he does this whole acrobatics around the room. Finally, the big guy who took the woman away, the dancer away, gets in there, hits him in the back, and then knocks him out with one good punch. Just knocks him out with one good punch. And then he throws him up on the table, and then the king pours some alcohol in his face. He wakes up. He wakes up and he's like, still got some fight in you, do you, boy? Not like, yeah, that's my speech. Sorry. He's like, you still got some fight in you, do you? And then they grab him and all the women. He goes, I'll show you a Viking that lost the will to fight. And they take them all to this cave. And this is where the rest of the Viking crew is. The men they're looking for, their lovers, the Viking lovers, are in this cave. And they're breaking rocks, you know, I guess digging for ore or whatever, but they're breaking rocks. It's a great time. Desir sees her man and he runs up to her and her man's like, Desir, is this a dream? Is this an illusion? She's like, no, it's real. I'm really here. And then like the Black Witch is like, makes you sick how much in love they are. And then the king's like, I guess gets pissed off that and he's like, separate them. Guards start pulling the women away from the men. And then the Viking that's stowed away in their ship and another woman and Viking are together and he grabs them, pulls them away. And he's like, stop it. And the Viking man's like, stop it. We're not a thing. We're not a thing. And then everyone stops and he goes, looks at the Viking woman and he goes, are we a thing? And I was like, dude, you're a kid, you're a slave now, getting kidnapped, all this other stuff happening, and you're gonna ask this woman at this moment, you think she's gonna give you an honest answer? Crazy fucking shit. Anyways, they go. He walks up to him and he's like, let's see how much your love really means. And he's like, take the women back to the castle. Starts dragging the guy back and he's like, let me be, I belong with the men. And this guy just tosses him behind him. This guard goes, I don't get paid enough for this. I don't give a fuck where you're going. I just want to get back and drink some more. We were having a party. And so he just tosses the stowaway Viking back with the men and then just keeps walking with the king back to the castle. They get back to the castle. They cut to the women being thrown in a room, a slave room. I'm not for sure if it was a slave room or not. Anyway, one of the Vikings, they're like, I wonder if one of us can slip through it. So Desir's sister's skinny enough and small enough. She slips through bars on the window. And then it comes back to the guys in the cave. They're like, tell them what happened, how they got here. The Sea Serpent, same thing. Sea Serpent sunk their ship. And then the people of this castle, the guards, got them before they could, fully regain consciousness / control of their body after being passed down the beach. Then, and they're like, we have to find a way out. Then it comes back to the women. We cut back to the Viking women. And then 2 older women walk in to give the Viking women food. And then they try to grab one of the Vikings' jewelry, and then they start all fighting, and then the guard comes in, leaves the door wide open. The guard comes in, tries to break it all up, and then the Black Witch finally sneaks out. And then it cuts back to the guys in the cave, and then the sister's finally there. Show them they're locked up, and they point at the guard. She looks at the guard. I thought she was going to steal the keys of the guard. Like one of those old-fashioned, get the keys off the guard. No, she picks up a rock, bashes the guard's head in. The guard may be dead. The guard might be dead in that scene. She steals these comical, like they're so big for what they're used for, off of the guard. Unlocks the men. The men are like, quick, let's grab some weapons. The chief of the Vikings grabs a spear, and the other ones get a lot of random stuff. And they start sneaking out of the cave system they're in. And then at the near the entrance, one of the Vikings go, let me scout ahead. And he goes ahead. They're ambushed. Simple fact is they're ambushed. Took him down, stopped from escaping, ambushed. The Black Witch talked to the king, told him what was happening, so he was ready for them to escape, ambushed. And during the ambush, the skinny guy runs away, gets past the king where the king's at and the son are standing up on the rock watching his men take it. Runs away, and then the big guy who picks up the guard who picks up the dancers and runs after him. He finally gets he finally grabs the stowaway Viking. He finally catches up with the stowaway Viking, grabs him, rolls him around, and starts beating him like a child. I would say, the red's on the ground. It's like he has a belt. He's like, "Argh, argh," like a child. Knocks him out somehow. We don't say how he knocks him out. Carries him back. And then, I guess they don't realize the Black Witch is the problem. Then it cuts back. Everyone's in chains. Then it cuts back to, the Black Witch and the king coming into the king's quarter. He's like a man who's been working a 9 to 5. He comes in, takes his hat off, sits down, and then she's like, you're not, and then he says something to her, and then she's like, you're not really giving me what I really want. He's like, do you really wish her to be dead? And she's like, yes. And he's like, a surprise one that you want dead. Anyways, he talks, and then he goes, I know what you really want. You don't want me. You want the giant Viking. And she's like, she's calm. He knows that he's not interested in her. And she goes, yes, but only for a time. And he's like, huh. And she goes, I bet I can get him to forget about her and fall in love with me. And he's like, an amusement propagation. Fine. He goes, fine. I'll give you your chance. He goes, fine, I'll give you your chance. Gives her his ring to show to the guards to get to the Vikings. And then she goes in there. She starts trying to seduce the leader Viking, Desor's man. He goes, I'm sure the Viking shooter will be a happy Viking. And she goes, I've already chosen one. And it's like, and he's so madly in love with Desir. He's like, I cannot. Desir is my chosen one. The only one I wish to have. And she gets really mad, so she leaves. She's pissed. And she gets back to King Corner, and he's smart because he knows what happened. He knows. And he's like, how did it go? And she's like, I want them both dead. Kill them both. And he's like, fine, I'll do it. And then after they're both dead, he's like, fine. Then after they're dead, you can come back to my quarters and honor the deal. I guess they're going to have sex at that point. Cuts away to daytime. They're all on a beach. I was like, how are they going to do it? Hanging, stabbing. I was just curious. They're going to burn them. They cut back to a beach scene. They're strapped up like witches in all the witch movies that have witch burnings. And they're just strapped there, building the strikes. And then he's like, this. And then the guy's like, this will test your true love. The first one who begged me to let them be will be free. Will not be set on fire. Will be free. And the man and woman go back and forth. They're like, you must say it. No, you must say it. And they're like, I'm not going to say it. And she's like, I'm not going to say it. And then the king goes, enough. The first one to beg me to be free shall be set free, and the other shall die. If neither beg me to be free, then they both shall die. And he goes to his son, son, light the fire. And the son grabs the torch. And all happy. The son's all happy. He's wearing a diaper in this scene, which I don't really like. Really distracted me. It's not a cloth diaper. It's really weird. I don't like what he's wearing in this scene. But he grabs the torch. He walks over to where they're at. He looks dead in the eye, the woman who saved his life. And then he just sets it on fire. He doesn't stop. I like, oh, this is his chance. He's going to rise above his dad. He's going to join the Viking. No, he just sets the fire. As it goes towards them, they're both begging each other to be set free. And then it finally catches the wood on fire. And then they're sitting there for a while. And then they go, I love you. And then the other girl goes, I love you. And then the Black Witch is like, stop. You must stop. To kill such lovers is a crime to the gods. And he's like, maybe your gods, but our gods of mine sacrifice. Do you not hear them roar? The thunder, lightning. And then she's like, no, your gods are fake. Our gods is real. And then she starts praying to Thor. The rain's just lightning. Rain comes. People are freaking out. The rain comes, start putting the fire. The guards of this place just leave. They're like, it's rain. We're calling it a work day. It's a rain out. Rain out. Everyone go. They all leave. The son starts panicking, pulls out his freaking sword, and just stands there. I don't know. I guess he's going to fight Thor. Anyway, a lightning bolt hits the tip of his sword. Son's dead. Dead. The guy starts crying. He goes, son, I'll revenge you. And the other Vikings are scrambling to free the guy and the woman. And he pulls his sword out. And the one guy starts fighting him with a stick. And then he finally gets the advantage. He grabs the sword, puts it through his throat. And the king's like, make it a quick and painless death. And he's like, no, I do not wish to kill you. So the Viking throws the sword down. The king's still whining about his son, crying about his son. The Vikings leave. Then it cuts to them carrying his son up a mountain to a fire pit on that mountain. Doesn't explain what the fire pit is. I thought it was lava. I thought I missed the lava. No, it's just a fire pit on this mountain. And the guy goes, the sword. He throws the sword in there. And he goes, now the women. And I'm like, the woman? What do you mean the woman? It's the dancer from earlier. They just throw her into the fire pit. They go, she's like, what? And just throw her in. And he's like, nah, my son. And he dumps his son in there. And he goes, I must get revenge. On your tombstone, let it know I got your revenge for this. And I thought this time, I was like, oh my god, he's gonna start a war with Thor. He's gonna start a war. No, he's just going after the Vikings. Cuts back to the Vikings running away, trying to find the beach. Then they're like, I'm pretty sure it's this way to the beach. And the guy's like, I got a good view at it. I'll go look. And then it cuts back to the king and his men riding horses. And then they release the dog and they start following the dog. The dog's tracking the Vikings. And then it cuts back to the guy climbing up top. He gets to the top of the mountain. He sees off in the distance they're coming. And he runs back down the mountain. He goes, the beach is this way, but we need to hurry. They're on our trail. And the Viking leader, chief, is like, all right, let's go. They start running. The dogs are following. And then at some point, the Black Witch, the one who caused all this mess, the one who done all this, was like, I guess she had to change the heart. And she stopped and she started taking off her bracelets, jewelry, anything that had her center on, it. Starts throwing them on the ground, leading them away. Panic ensues. She's panicking through the whole thing. The dogs are chasing after. The guys are following her. She gets to the cliffside, can't go anywhere. The dogs finally catch up. The dogs, it goes to the scene where she's wrestling. The dogs are great, by the way. The dogs are just having a great time. The dogs are perfect in this movie. Gotta love these dogs. The dogs are awesome. Anyways, cuts to her fighting a dog. And then it goes back to the king and his men rolling up on her. She's dead. The dogs killed her. And he's like, now, time for the rest of the Vikings to get what they are owed. Cuts back to the people. Seeing the boats. They're going, look, that's our way out. And one girl's like, if we can handle it. No reason for her to say that. Fucking asshole. But can we even handle it? Fucking asshole. And then you hear in the distance the Black Witch screaming. And she's like, oh, she must have sacrificed herself to save us. And then they're like, let's not waste any time then. And they run. The king shows up and they get down there. They're all pushing the boat in. and then the one guy like trips. Same scenario in the first part. I guess he trips and he turns around and he notices the big guy who took over the dancer coming after him. And then he like he stays and fights the big guy. He gets the upper hand, kills the big guy, drowns him, and then he just runs. I was like, oh, he must be, he must get stuck on this island. No, he runs and swims. These guys are Olympic swimmers. He runs and swims. The water's choppy as hell. You cut to the boat, the water's choppy as hell. He swims to the boat. They're probably about 20 feet by this point away from the shore. A big chunk of it he swam to get to them. And they're like, oh, he's here. And they pull him up. He's like one of the ones like, you are the bravest of all Vikings. He comes back to the king, finally getting there, pushing a boat, and then starts following them. And then they're in the boat. They go look out into the distance, and it's like, oh, the serpent. What shall we do? And the Viking leader's like, we will go to it. And if it drags us to hell, hopefully it will drag them to hell too. And the king sees it. He's like, stop. They stop. They're like, start paddling backwards. They stop. And then like the serpent's like, doing his serpent thing. And the king Viking, the leader Viking, pulls out a fucking sword. And he goes, may Thor guide this truth straight. I'm like, what do you mean? Tosses like a javelin. Spears the sea serpent right in the forehead, and the sea serpent's like, you fucking dicks, and then swims past them. It's even like, you guys are dicks, I'm gonna go hang out with these other guys. Swim past them, and then the king's men and him get attacked by the sea serpent. The sea serpent kills them, kills the boat, destroys them, kills them, and then it's like, oh, that's cool. And then I guess he dies. The sea serpent dies, bleeds to death, just dies. I figured it had thicker skin, but no, just a little poke from a sword kills it. It's crazy. And that's how the movie ends. The movie ends with the king and his men and the sea serpent all dead. And I guess the Vikings finally made it home. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they two are going to get married, but that's how it ends. The Vikings, what's left of the Vikings, make it out alive. And the sea serpent and the king and his men are dead. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the saga of the Viking women and their voyage through the waters of the giant sea serpent. The maker of this film was Roger Corman. Carmen said he was approached by special effects experts Irving Block and Jack Robinson, who acquired a script by Louis Goldman. Carmen said that Black and Robin showed him some practical effects that they came up with, and Carmen said it was breathtaking. Carmen said he loved it, but he did not like the script very well. But it's reported that he was inspired by a film called The Vikings, and he felt like he could get it out quick enough that the publicity of the Vikings might lead more people to his movie, which is crazy that they were doing that kind of stuff back then. I know you guys are like, oh, this is a new thing, right? No, they've been mockbusting since the 50s. If there's a way to make money, people will find a way to do it. It was shot very quickly. It's said that the director wasted no time. It's said that the director used every piece of reel perfection. He didn't have overages. He tried to make everything perfect. He tried to fit it all together. He was trying to make the director was trying to shorten the shooting schedule. I mean, this director trying to do everything to get this movie out before the Vikings came out, just so that way they can just be like, hope to lure people in to something that looks like the Viking but isn't. Some actors have come out and said it was a disaster film to work on because of the director's quickness and how fast he wanted the shooting schedule to be and how he didn't want to waste any film. And also said that the director said that Common was just such, he didn't sugarcoat anything. He came out and said, hey, this is what's wrong. You need to quit. You need to do it this way. Kind of guy, like your grandpa, like my grandpa, demon. They said he was an absolute demon shooting because he needed it done quick, fast, and under budget. It's crazy. This movie sounds like a nightmare to work on. People got hurt because of the low budget. Somebody fell off a horse and hurt himself. Richard Davin, who is Stark, who was the small Viking, apparently almost drowned after hurting his knee and falling into water. It's just crazy. This movie's backstory is crazy. It sounds like it was a nightmare to work on. It sounds like it was very dangerous. It sounds like Carmen just needed this movie to get out as quick as possible, and he didn't care who got hurt or what happened in the process of making that happen. And it's crazy to me that something like this exists in the 50s, because I can't believe they were making mockbusters in the 50s either. It's crazy to me that Carmen saw the Vikings and was like, if we get this movie out before the Vikings, people might come watch this movie because they're hyped to watch the Vikings, and this is also a Vikings movie. That's crazy to me. This whole thing is crazy to me. But despite all the injuries and stuff, I think this movie came together really well. I would definitely recommend watching it. At this point, I have to say, I'd give it 5 rats. 5 out of 10 rats. I mean, it's a decent movie. If you're looking for a high fantasy movie, I wouldn't recommend watching it because it's not really high fantasy. It's not high fantasy. The sea serpent doesn't show up that much, and everything else is just a normal Vikings movie. Not very much magic. I guess Thor comes and saves them in that one scene, but other than that, it's just. So if you're hoping to see a lot of cool practical effects, you're hoping to see the sea serpent alive, if you're hoping to see anything, you don't need to be watching this movie. But if you're looking for a fun short, because it's only an hour long, it's a real short movie. If you're looking for something like that, just to kill an hour, I would recommend watching it. I give it 5 out of 10 rats. And that's how I feel about this movie. Like I said, the production of it, the making of it, all that sounds fucking crazy. It just seems like Carmen just really, really wanted to hopefully profit off the Vikings with as low as a budget as possible. It's crazy. It's just crazy still that they made mockbusters back in 57. They were like, hey, this movie's coming out. We can hurry up and get this other movie out and just maybe write out the publicity. It's crazy that it happened. But I'd like to thank y'all for listening to Sewerscreens once again. And next week, we're looking at the Who incident. It's a newer movie. Came out in 2023. It looked pretty interesting. When I first saw it, I was like, man, I really want to watch this movie. It looked like a fan-made movie, and it looks really interesting. Hopefully next week you tune in to the Who incident, and we can see if that movie beats the Vikings or if it's flushed away once again into the sewers of Hollywood. Thank you all for listening.